One of the fundamental objects that interests us in algebra is what's called a function. Before we can define functions, we have to define a more basic notion, the notion of a relation. Now, a relation is just any collection of ordered pairs. We can describe it using a graph, a table, or an equation in two variables. We can think of a relation as having inputs and outputs. The set of all of the first entries in the ordered pairs, we think of those as inputs, and the collection of all of them is called the domain. All of the second entries we think of as outputs, and the collection of all of those is called the range. So we think of a relation as taking an input from the domain and mapping that to an output from the range. We're mostly going to be interested in relations for two quantitative variables. So the input is a number, the output is also a number. However, we start with some kind of toy examples just to get an idea of what this is. When we have a relation, we think of it as corresponding to some sort of a rule. So in this first table, we see the input cat gives us the output meow. The input dog gives us the output bark. The input cow gives us the output moo. And the input dog can also give us the output woof. So this rule might be something like, what does the animal say if you ask a 5-year-old? So if you ask a 5-year-old, what does the dog say? One 5-year-old might say bark and another one might say woof. So both of those are valid outputs for the input dog. So in the second table, the input Eric gives us the output 18. The input Seth gives us the output 20. The input Christy gives us the output 18. The input Jennifer gives us the output 19. Now, what might this be? We're kind of guessing here what the rule was. But one good guess might be to say, well, maybe the inputs are a set of traditional college students and the outputs are their age. So this rule might be, what is the person's age in years? This last example, we have actual numbers, right? So I think it's going to be easier to figure out what the rule is here. The input 0 gives the output 0. The input 2 gives the output 4. The input 4 gives the output 8. So let's see, 0 goes to 0. That makes us think we're going to be multiplying by something, because 0 times anything will always give us 0. Let's see, we want 2 times something gives us 4. 4 times something gives us 8. Oh, I think it'll work to fill in 2 for all of these, right? 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So I think that the rule here is something like multiply the input by 2. That seems like a good guess for what the rule is in this table. So these are just some basic examples of relations. We think of this as some input from the domain is associated with some output in the range. And typically when we have a relation, we think of it as describing some sort of a rule.